Hello and welcome to a very special shootout here in Hong Kong. We're joined by Gary White, the head coach and technical director of Guam. Gary, thanks for taking the time to speak to us. That's a hell of a job title. I don't know how you fit it on your business card.
Right.
How difficult is it to combine those two roles?
It's difficult when you're in tournaments and you've got to prepare for tournaments because something has to give in terms of your time. Obviously, you know when you've got East Asian semi-finals to worry about, it's full on. It's 24 hours a day. So yeah, it's difficult to balance it, but generally it works fine.
Let's talk a little bit about football and what's been happening recently in Guam, because it's a great story given that it's such a small country in terms of the resources available to you. You've come here, done very well in the first match, the second not disgraced by any means, and last night probably had the better of the play in that draw. What's the situation like in Guam? Tell us the population, tell us how hard and the challenges facing.
So the population in Guam is about 200,000 people. We went up against Taiwanese last night. We have 32 million people, so there's a big disparity there. But in terms of our drive and desire, you know, we're as big as anybody, and that's led by our president Richard Lai, who is very aggressive about what he wants to do in Guam football. So what we did in February is we really changed the mentality in terms of what we expect from players. Obviously, we've brought in a lot of new players. We've worked with some of the younger players on Guam, and we've had a big turnaround in the last 10 months.
We've seen a lot of AFC nations in recent times, particularly, say, the Philippines, almost repatriating players with heritage overseas. You've gone down that path as well. How did you go about finding players who were eligible and willing to play for the national team?
Well, the first thing I did was I made sure that our technical department, have we seen everybody that's available? And I wanted to really answer that question. We still haven't answered that question fully. There's still other players out there that we're talking to. And then it's a question of selling the vision to those players. You know, people like Ryan Guy, whose father is from Guam. You know, he plays at New England Revolution in the MLS, and it wasn't an easy sell in the beginning because prior to me being there, the results were very big against teams like Taiwan that we tied with last night 1-1. So it's just a question of selling the vision and trying to get them to buy into what you're seeing, and that's what we seem to be doing a very good job of that right now.
The challenge for you, is it one? Is it a technical challenge, or is it trying to organise things tactically?
It's for the younger players, it's technically and tactically, and then for the older players, it's just getting them to buy into the program because they're coming with their skills that they already have from their clubs, and then just working on the strategy. So generally, it's a mixture of both. But you know, we've made huge strides in both those areas.
Infrastructure, of course, is a key part of any development work. You were telling me you're fortunate in Guam to have some reasonable facilities. Can you elaborate on what they are?
Yeah, I mean, we have a world-class national training centre with a $5 million centre, and then we also have the Leo Palace, which is a world-class sporting hotel resort where many J-League teams and K-League comes every year and do pre-season. So in terms of facilities, we're up there with some of the bigger countries for sure. I mean, it's world class.
There's not many locally based players in this squad. What's the standard like of the domestic competition, and how much of a challenge for you is to try and sort things out domestically?
Well, we have three main objectives coming into the job. One of them was to make the men's team, the Mattel, competitive amongst mid-level Asia immediately, which we've done. And then we've also built the National Academy, which is the youth program where players come in on a daily basis and get trained in an elite academy format. And then the third one was club and coaching development, which we're constantly doing. So the men's league is we have three divisions. We have to get our better players out of Guam and into more competitive leagues, is what we've been doing, and that's been another part of the program, is to move those players so they're in a competitive environment day in, day out. So when we bring them in to the national team, they're more ready for the environment.
Where would you like to see Guam be in say 5 years' time?
Well, we have a 10-year plan. We've set up a 10-year strategic development plan. We've called it Project 2022, and it's named the fifth element. We want to be the fifth element in East Asia. So above teams like Hong Kong, above teams like Taiwan, above teams like Mongolia, and those type of teams that we should always be beaten at every level of the program. So We have a 10-year program to be competitive in East Asia, which is, as you know, is one of the most competitive associations in the world.
The next challenge, of course, is a big one, up against Australia. No doubt there's a lot of people in Australia that'd be hoping you're going to do us a favour and lie down and let us run 20-odd past you. I'm assuming that's not going to happen. How are the boys preparing for this?
Well, the boys are excited. I mean, I've laid down the challenge that this is a measuring stick for them. This is a real test. You know, you're going up against world-class teams like Australia, the top 30 team in the world, and this is a real measuring stick for you. Even though you're young, you know, how far away are you from people like Brett Emerton, you know, and measure yourself against them and see what you need to improve on. So we're going to take away from this game as an experience, and they won't lay down. I mean, it's not in the Guam nature. They're fighters, and they want to impress. So it'll be a great experience for us.
Who are some of those players? You mentioned Ryan Guy earlier. Who are some of the players that the folks in Australia be watching these games should be looking out for? Who are the ones that you think could maybe kick on and really do things?
Well, our captain Jason Cunliffe, as you see, number 10, is an excellent player, currently playing in the Philippines, but you know we'd like to see him get maybe into the A-League. Doug Herrick, the goalkeeper, is definitely at that level. He's played in the MLS, so those type of players are players that everyone should look out for sure. Sean Nicklaw, he plays in Denmark. Again, a young pro that's looking to maybe move over to Asia at some point. And then we've got a bunch of youngsters, you know, that are probably going to go to the college route first and then kick onto professional level. You've
had a couple of chats here at the hotel. Should let the people know all the teams are staying in the same hotel in Hong Kong. You've met with Mr. Ozick. What was the reason for doing that, and what have you taken from those discussions?
I worked very closely with his son in Seattle when he was in Vancouver, so I know the family well, and they're great people. And then just to really pick his brains, I mean, this is a guy that's coached at the highest level, and he's a very humble guy, and he allowed me time to speak with him about coaching development and career development, and a real solid mentor. So you're very fortunate to have him in Australia.
You should tell us about this program that you're on, being run by the English FA as well.
Yeah, so the English FA have selected 16 coaches under the age of 40 who had the highest UEFA A licence score, and they want to create a pool of coaches because, as you know, in the Premier League there's only 5 English coaches. So they want to create a pool of young up-and-coming coaches that one day will kick into the Premier League and work in the national teams in the FA. It's a 2-year program. It's called the Elite Coaching Academy, and it's the highest level available in the world at this point in terms of practical coaching. So it's a 2-year course, and I head back there in January to be at St George's Park and meet my colleagues and talk about this tournament. For sure will be a hot subject, I'm sure.
Just tell us briefly about your career. You had a brief stint actually playing in Australia, and then got into the coaching caper. Tell us where you've been, where it's taken you, and hopefully where you'd like it to all take you.
Well, football's been great to me. I mean, it's I played locally in Southampton as a youth player, and then got released, and then played for Bognor Regis in the lower levels of English football, Vauxhall Conference at the time, and then was fortunate enough to go over to Fremantle and spend 2 seasons with Fremantle City, also known as Fremantle Benfica at one point. And then really just decided that I could be kicking around until I'm 38 as I am now, looking for contracts. So I didn't want to do that. So at 22 I just decided that coaching was my calling, and I've stayed in the game as a coach.
Tell us where you've been.
I was the national coach for the Bahamas, national coach for the Virgin Islands, worked with Seattle Sounders and Washington Youth Soccer in Seattle, also spent some time in Trinidad, and now I'm in Guam. So football has really been wonderful to me.
You prefer in the future to work with these kind of developing nations? You want to work with youth teams, or you said maybe the option with this stream you're on is to ultimately try and get into the Premier League. Does that appeal?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my step to Asia was to come here and do the job in Guam, and then I'd like to move into either the J League or the Australian League, which is growing. So at some point, I see that's my next step, and then hopefully one day get back to England, and my goal is to be the English national team coach. So
it's a lofty ambition.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. But I think you need to have that to keep yourself moving forward. So I don't see why I can't do it. It's just a question of working hard and keep getting the results.
So just finally, the match tomorrow night against Australia. Holger, in all these chats in the lobby, hasn't been putting on the word on you to take it easy and get the goals that Australia needs?
No, I mean he's a professional, and I'm a professional, and it's about putting the team out and letting them fight for the result. No, it's going to be a great game for us. We never played Australia, and we're excited. We've got a few injuries, we've got a few suspensions, so it's kind of like a study. You've got to play Australia. You got losing a couple of key players. How are you going to do it? So
who are those players that are injured?
So Ryan Guy has got a knock, and
In the second half, please.
he carried a knock from Hong Kong. So that's why we only played him for a certain amount of time in the last night's game. So we'll see what he's doing. But we've also got a couple of suspensions, 2 yellow cards to Travis Nicklaw. So it gives the other players an opportunity to come out and shine and get that experience as well, which will only help the program in the coming years.
Tactically, how do you approach it? Do you sit back and try and take what you can on the counter, or do you go out and try and be a little bit more positive?
I think at first we want to keep it nice and tight, make it difficult for them to break us down. I mean, we want to try to avoid giving away set plays, because obviously the height advantage and the experience on that side of the game will tell on us. So we're going to keep it nice and tight and try to counter and make it difficult for them, so we can help them improve as well as us improve.
Okay, White, it's a fascinating journey you're on. We wish you all the best personally and indeed for the future of football in Guam.
Thank you so much. Cheers, mate.
Thank you, mate.